Welcome back to the All Kids Can podcast. Today, I am really excited to have a Step into Literacy mum with us today to talk about her journey. Tegan is a mum of a grade 4 boy in North Queensland in Australia. Tegan's son has a provisional diagnosis of dyslexia and up until recently had very minimal skills in reading, writing and spelling, despite having been at school for the past 5 years now. Tegan is an allied health professional herself. She's an occupational therapist. She knew that she needed to take matters into her own hands. Tegan is now doing our program, Step into Literacy, and also speeding things up even further by committing to one-to-one weekly sessions with myself. I hope that you enjoyed the episode. If you've got a child that is struggling at home with literacy and you feel a little bit powerless, well, I hope that this episode can inspire you and show you what is possible. Welcome to the All Kids Can podcast, dedicated to supporting parents on their journey to nurture happy, successful children in every facet of life, particularly their journey through their education. Whether you're navigating the complexities of a recent diagnosis or you're finding that your child is struggling to have success with their learning, this podcast is for you. As a parent, you have incredible power and influence in your child's life, and with the right knowledge and strategies, you will be empowered to guide your child towards their best life. I'm your host, Christy Howarth, accredited dyslexia therapist, special education teacher, family coach, and mum of two brilliantly neurospicy kids of my own. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Tegan. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your story today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So first of all, let me know when you first noticed that William was struggling. What kind of things were you seeing? What were the red flags?
So early on, even from a newborn, we've always included bedtime routine has been reading stories. And so I didn't really pick up anything that preschool. We were always reading, and he actually attended a daycare where he was in the pre-kindy class. They didn't have enough kids in the kindy program. So they asked William to go into the kindy class because he's actually quite advanced socially and emotionally, and his verbal skills are fantastic. And so I agreed to that, and we popped him in, and I didn't notice anything at that point. And then things changed. I started working more hours. So that meant that I had to do after school care. And it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise because we had to change daycares. And that meant that William had to go to a new kindy program, which was great because I think if we had have repeated the same program, he would have been really bored and quite disruptive. And so we did kind of repeated kindy twice where they did the letters and sounds and things. And so when we got to prep, we hadn't really noticed any change or any red flags quite yet.
Yeah.
Except I had noticed that rote learning, those sight words that they were bringing home, was really hard for William. Like, we were 6 months in and we still hadn't got the first 20.
Yeah.
And I guess being an OT, I'm not a peds OT by any means, I'm adult mental health. I was trying to be super creative with William and do lots of fun games, and he loves fishing and hunting. So we did like lots of Nerf games. We've got a fish tank, and we were fishing sight words with the fish tank. Don't think the fish appreciated that at all. But we weren't progressing. When he hit grade 1, we had a beautiful teacher that was very, very supportive. She flagged it with the school. And so they did run like some really basic assessments with William. one of them was like they had a paragraph of words and he had to pick out the in all of those.
Okay.
And he was able to do that. So they said, oh, we don't think he's got dyslexia.
Oh,
We
wow.
think he's just a boy. And, you know, he'll eventually get there. And so we kind of, he managed to get an A that year as well for English, because his teacher could identify that writing things down was the struggle with him, but his storytelling was just amazing. He had these great stories to tell. So he did get an A in grade 1. And then, but still never failed. So up until grade 3, he actually had never failed English
Mm.
until mid year 3. And I remember the teacher ringing me and saying, you know, I usually get nervous when I tell a parent that I'm about to fail them. But she was nervous at the beginning when she passed William to tell me, because she knew I was really, really concerned about his reading and writing level. So that was really interesting. And when we got to grade 3, I started the journey with the getting his hearing checked, getting his eyes checked. We did an auditory processing assessment. We enrolled, we're in North Queensland, a regional town. And so our access to pediatric allied health and professionals is quite limited. So he's on a wait list privately, and it's a 2-year wait list for a speech. Pediatricians over 6 months. So there was very limited access that I could get to kind of identify what was going on, and support William as best as I could. Because when we hit towards the end of that grade 3, and he could really see that his peers were so much more advanced than him, it really started to knock his confidence. And that hit me so hard, because I have this beautiful, outgoing little boy that I think his biggest strength is his ability to socialize and chat with other people. And I just didn't want that confidence to be knocked right from underneath him. So I just knew that I needed to do more. And I just wasn't getting anywhere with the school or with other support. I just didn't have access. We did manage to get a psychologist. Sorry, should have mentioned that, on board, and he's still doing his assessments and report for William, and did finally flag that yes, there could be a dyslexic diagnosis here. And it wasn't until I just started reaching out to friends and family and just going like, look, is there anyone else that I know that might be having similar experience to me, and how do they get help for their child? And so a friend of mine in Brisbane said, look, there's this wonderful person, Step Into Literacy, have a look at the program. She specializes in dyslexia, and see where you go. So I Sunday night was on the internet having a look through, and I messaged the website, and then Christy's phoning me Monday morning, saying hello, doing the referral. And I think on Tuesday we were having an appointment, and it was just so quick and smooth. And it was just the complete opposite to everything that I had experienced up until that point. Even the assessment process, I had the report by the end of the week. It was just really wonderful, and it really kind of reassured me, because I had a lot of self-doubt. I was thinking, you know, I'm an OT, I really should be able to support my child better. And here we are getting to grade 4, and he's just not able to even write a compound sentence. Like, we can't string any words together. His sight words are still misspelt. And he was really, really struggling. So yeah, that's kind of the journey up until now, when we started meeting with Christy and doing the Step Into Literacy program.
Oh, Tegan, I'm getting really emotional because I'm putting myself in your shoes, and for such a long time, you were blocked. You were blocked
Mm,
because of your location. You were blocked because of the wait list. You were blocked because everything seemed to be going along really well until that grade three point, which is
mm,
often like so common for kids to be flagged at that point, because if they're experiencing a balanced literacy approach, they can kind of get by and memorize and look like they're doing okay. And teachers can pass them, and and things don't get picked up early. But it really becomes very difficult to ignore once kids get to that grade three mark, where they start to really have to comprehend what they're reading, and the cognitive
mm.
load of what they need to do has increased so much that it all really does crash. Um, which, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? It would be ideal if we could identify this stuff earlier, of course, but at least grade three, we know we can still intervene. And so tell me a little bit about how William was feeling when he was struggling, and when he was had that awareness that other kids around me are progressing and I'm not. And he's such an
Mm.
outgoing, beautiful, bubbly kid, very intelligent. So how did that hit him on an emotional level?
Um, he was just coming home to me and just saying like, "Mom, I'm in the lowest group for reading," and he just was really starting to compare himself to the other kids. He's kind of the class clown, I would say, or like the cool cat. He likes to be. He's a popular kid, and so that really knocked him when he didn't. It was really noticeable. And then there was one time we had a friend come over for a play, and we're driving along, and William's rattling off all of these facts about animals and about wildlife. And the little girl turns around to him and goes, "William, I didn't realize you were so smart." And William's response was so cute. He just goes, "I'm not book smart, but I'm really smart."
Oh,
Um,
I love that.
but it was just really clear that other kids were even noticing that he was struggling in school, but they didn't know he had all these other abilities. And he didn't he's not really a kid that it's experienced bullying, I would say, but definitely there was an element, or there still is an element to it. um, and he's the type of kid that will he'll stand up for himself. And so we haven't had any incidents as such, but I think there's a little bit of that where he's having to stand up for himself and kind of back him, which breaks your heart as a parent to know that your kid is experiencing that. And then it's had the flow on effect to not wanting to go to school anymore. And every day is a challenge to get him into his uniform and get him to school, because he just begs for me to homeschool him. He wants to be outside. He doesn't want to be in the classroom. He, yeah, he's also experiencing, because he's quite slow at writing, that it's chewing into some of his playtime.
Mm.
It's not, they'll say, "Oh, William, stay in so you can finish that off." And so he's noticing how difficult that is, because all he wants to do is get out and play with his friends.
Course,
Um,
yeah, because he needs
yeah.
that movement. That is
Mm,
that is something that I just have to say for anyone listening. If your child is being held in to finish off tasks when they have these reading difficulties or writing difficulties, that is not an okay thing for the teacher to be doing, and that does warrant you to go up and make an appointment with the teacher and let them know that you are not going to allow that to happen, because it is just, it further crushes their confidence and makes them not want to go to school. I mean, if I was in William's shoes, I wouldn't want to go to school either, would you?
no. No. And I think it does kind of discriminate him a little bit, because he's being segregated even more,
Mm-hmm.
because he hasn't been able to finish it on time.
Yep.
Um, And I just want to mention one thing that, and maybe other parents or other listeners might feel the same, is that I kept getting, oh, he might have attention difficulties, and that's why he's having these reading and writing issues. And yes, I think there is an element of attention with William, but we got the standard NAP plan. I know lots of people don't love the NAP plan, but when I got that, I felt that that was the clearest picture for me to represent William to the school, because it showed, on the scale, it's got, I think it's very low, low, average, strong, and then very strong. So his maths was in the in the strong, so it was above average. It was in the strong zone, and then his reading, writing, and spelling and punctuation was in the very low. So to me, that screams that it's not necessarily an attention issue, because if it was, he wouldn't have been able to score so highly in maths, because attention doesn't just come in and out.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was probably a pivotal moment, and that was in grade 3 as well, where I could really get the school on board to say we can no longer keep foundering along and saying that this is an attention issue. There's definitely a learning difficulty with reading and writing.
That is such a good point. Like I love that logic that comes in. Well, he's excelling here, but he's definitely got deficits here, but you're blaming the whole thing on attention. Clearly,
Mm.
that's not true. Wow, what a spotlight on the whole situation. Thank you for sharing that. And so I do find that a lot of kids do get flagged as having ADHD or having attention difficulties, because of the fact that they're not able to engage with the curriculum due to reading and writing difficulties. And we do know that they can exist together quite commonly,
Mhm.
dyslexia and ADHD, and maybe there is an element of that as well. But when you see something so clearly like that, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was, yeah, that was definitely a moment where I felt validated in myself, that it wasn't just me kind of, because I do have another son in our family that's got a diagnosis of ADD. And so I think I naturally compensate. And then I was thinking, oh, maybe I am just not seeing what the school's seeing, because I naturally compensate at home for my son that's got attention issues. But it was really, really validating that actually you've got to sometimes follow this mum intuition or mum gut instinct, because it was just not all about attention.
Yes, that's so true because as mums, we know our kids the very best, and we do get intuition about what they need and who they are and what kind of learners they are and all of those sorts of things. So it is so important to listen to that feeling or that gut response.
Mm.
So you were saying that when you actually showed the school that NAPLAN result, and there was such a big discrepancy between the results and the different areas, and it really did highlight his difficulties with reading and with spelling and literacy. What happened with the school from there? Tell us a little bit about your journey with advocating for William in the school. How have they been able to support him? Has he been getting the right support?
So that's when they were really coming on board with linking him in with other like health professionals. So they got the psychologist on board, and he straight away started to do the assessments. And he acknowledged that William, is an intelligent kid, and that he might, because I think they've got just these baseline assessments that they're doing with all kids. But when I did the referral with him, I really articulated that it's important that they don't just do the attention, do all of those other ones that might show up there, that he really needs to target on literacy. So whatever assessments they need to do for that, to do them for him.
Yep.
The head of curriculum officer was involved, and we managed to get some teacher aid support. So this year, William's got two 40-minute teacher aid support, but it is in a group situation. So it's still not a one-on-one support. And so he goes to a reading group that's at his level. And they go around in a circle. And this is what I understand from William's perspective. I'm meeting with the school soon to just find out a little bit more about what actually happens in these reading groups. But yeah, so William said that they just go around, they read a book, and everyone takes turns. And he feels very rushed, and he feels like if he doesn't get it right, there's just the teacher's just, come on, we've got to get this done, and it's just a quick they'll correct the word for him, and then it's moving on. And so he's disengaged from these groups, and I've received an email from the teacher to say that he's not engaging, and I've always been very supportive of behavior and things and being really respectful and polite. So try to nip that in the butt straight away when I heard that. But when I really broke it down with William, it didn't sound like it was that he was being disrespectful or not wanting to participate. He really wants to try and learn, but it wasn't really at it. My understanding is that it's not at his level of need, and he's just feeling squashed.
Feeling squashed in a group that's supposed to be supporting him and uplifting his skills. So from our conversations previously, it sounds like, but you're going to dive a little bit further into this with the school, with the meeting that you've organised with them, but it does sound like they're taking a balanced literacy approach within their small groups. So I have explained this a lot of times on this podcast, but just quickly, in case this is the first time you've listened to us, a balanced literacy approach is where we are teaching kids to make guesses based on the first letter or based on the context of the word. So reading on and then thinking, problem solving and thinking, what that word might say. So making a guess again, looking at pictures and making guesses. So the whole balanced literacy approach is about looking at the first letter, and that's the only phonics part of it, but the rest of it is about problem solving and making a guess about what we think the word might say. And we know that that's not reading, and our kids will never learn to read that way, and they do need a structured literacy approach like what William is getting in Step Into Literacy and in his one-on-ones with me. So if you imagine what we're doing is all we're doing is giving William more of the same that has failed him for the previous 5 years of being at school, but in a more concentrated setting and more frequently, so 40 minutes. So I have advised in the past to people, if this is happening for your child, sometimes I'm going to say sometimes, but I think all the time, what it does is more harm than good, because we are just reinforcing the fact that in our child's mind that they're dumb. They still don't get it, even though they're still getting this, special attention with this special teacher, with these kids that are in the same boat as him, and he still doesn't get it, Now, how crushing is that for a child? And where does that leave them when they are not going to get the progress because they're getting the wrong intervention? And so
it's reinforcing him to continue to guess. And even when we're going from reading to writing, I've noticed when I try to read back any of William's work, he is just getting the start of a word, and then the end bit is just getting completely lost. And then so when we've got to read it back, we're trying to decipher because we've only got the start of a word there, and then we don't know. And so we're just continuing to guess all along. So I think this systematic approach has been really helpful already. And I think it's been maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or maybe a bit longer. Yeah.
With our one-to-ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've had maybe 5 sessions. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I should explain that with our sessions and with you doing Step into Literacy, just in case some parents are interested in, well, how does that work and why do you need the extra one-to-one? What we have done, Tegan, is that we have really created a collaborative approach that is really fast tracking William because you're committing to Step into Literacy, which is you have solidified those foundations for him. You have made sure they're really strong, and then you're teaching syllable type and word types. So you're moving along the pathway of syllables, which I know is the most quickest effective way of getting kids to read quickly. So, so particularly important for those kids in that middle years of primary school who need a boost really quickly. So that's why I created Step into Literacy, because I knew that was the fastest way to do that. So you're doing that pathway. And then from our one-on-one sessions, myself and William, we're doing the phonology side of things. So I'm doing sort of like the letter combinations and the generalizations and the rules and all of that kind of thing. So he's a really lucky boy because he's getting a two-pronged approach here, which is so helpful for him. And tell me, what kind of response would you say, well, what kind of changes have you seen, since him starting structured literacy, Step into Literacy and our one-on-ones, I guess?
Well, um, to do homework, we would be pulling our hair out because we just couldn't sit down and do homework. And then now that I'm doing the step, and I was really apprehensive about doing one-on-one with William because I was thinking, I can't even get him to do homework. How am I
Yes.
possibly
You
going to be
did
able to do
fishing,
this program?
you did
Yeah,
fishing and everything, and that still didn't work.
it still didn't work. How is this going to, yeah, what are we going to have to do to
Mm,
get him to engage in this? Because I just, at the end of the day, want my little boy to be able to functionally read, to, sign a contract if he needs to, and later on in life. But it's been wonderful because it's at William's level. He doesn't feel so overwhelmed and challenged that we've started from the very basics. And a lot of it, when I started doing the first bit, it was a little bit of revision, and then we've gone into it's a little bit harder now, and then we're continuing to just build on really, really slowly. And so I'm not getting a pushback. He's happy to sit down. And he loves Tuesdays is when we have our one-on-one with Christy, and he is so, yeah, wakes up Tuesday, I'm good to go, because he also gets to have a little bit of one-on-one with me in the morning without his siblings around, so that's a little bit special.
yeah, you don't
And
have to go to school as well.
yeah, yes,
The bonus.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's rocking up late to school, so that's massive. And he rocks in straight on playtime, so it's just the best day
Great.
in William's eyes. But he's so engaged. I can listen in on the tutoring lesson, and he's not wandering off. He's there. He's just, yeah, having fun. A couple of times we've had technical issues and we've had to finish early or we've dropped out. And he's gutted. He's like, oh, I wasn't ready to finish. I still wanted to continue doing the work. And that's a huge win for us. Even my husband, who's been really supportive of me, but probably not as engaged and advocating on William's behalf, as what I like, as invested as I am. Like, he's supportive and he gets it that he's struggling, but yeah, he's kind of left all of that to me to navigate. And I've just noticed, so bedtime, because I'm still stickler, even though he's 9, we still every night is a book before bed, and he's now picking out a chapter book, which is just mind blowing because I'm thinking we can't read a chapter book. We're not, like, we're 5 weeks in, we're not going to be able to manage that. But I'm rolling with it. We read one page together, and he's trying really, really hard. And I'm using the techniques when we do that. And yeah, it's working, and he's loving it, and he's reading aloud, which before he'd just, just look at a book and kind of make it up.
Yeah.
And he's
'Cause- yeah.
actually starting to read.
Yeah. So
So
good.
good.
I get so
Yeah.
emotional when I hear these stories. Like it's the best. And I love working with William, but you've also been doing Step into Literacy for a little bit longer than those 5 weeks. And you've got a lot of tools in your belt now in terms of the techniques that you were just talking about. Just briefly, we'll finish up soon, but just briefly tell us a little bit about those techniques that you use with him that you've learned through the course.
I when I've done the course, because you teach it in a way that it's like I'm the student, that I'm learning it, I just find that it's really good role modeling, that I just have to do what you've taught me. And then it's really repetitive. It's the same error corrections each time. So when William's trying to read and maybe he's missed the middle sound or the second sound or something like that, we just go straight back to first sound, William, and then we keep going on. And I think that's helpful for me because I'm not kind of winging it all the time,
Yeah.
which is what I felt like I was doing before, with the balanced literacy approach. Like I really tried hard to do the Skippy Frog and the eagle eye and do all of those things with William, but it just wasn't working. And I could see he wasn't making the connections. But because we've got those strategies with the Step into Literacy, it's the exact same response each time. It's scripted there. I don't have to make it up. I don't have to dazzle it with my fishing in the fish tank. It's just right there. So that's been really, really helpful for me. And I don't have time. Like I'm time poor. I'm working, trying to do all the things that you have to do with motherhood. So it's really, really nice just to have such a structured program that you can implement when you're driving. Like we're doing stuff in the car now, talking about reading and writing and sounding out words and practicing things. And so it's not just sitting down at the dining table and pumping some things out. It's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's how we get the best results too, because once you understand the approach, it is our world. We can do it everywhere, because literacy is everywhere, right? But you can do it on the fly. And I love that you shared that. Thank you. Oh, Tegan, I'm so glad your friend in Brisbane put you onto me, and
I'm so grateful.
I'm so glad that you're on board now with William. You know what you're doing, and the never can say this word, trajectory of his life has completely changed, right? You've got his support. You've got the support for him now, and he's on his way to reading chapter books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ninja Kids, Ando.
Yes.
Loving it.
Thank you so much, Tegan, for your time. And I hope that parents at home listening to your story can feel inspired and know that, this is something that they can do no matter where you are in the world as well. If you're regional, if you don't have those resources around you, if you're time poor, even you've got a full-time job as an OT, you can do it. You can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can. And it's been the best thing for William and our family. And I'm really grateful that we've been connected, Christy. So thank you.
Thanks, Tegan.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the All Kids Can podcast. If you like what you've heard on today's episode, I would be grateful if you could take a minute to leave a rating or a review. Thank you for helping us grow and be visible to parents who can benefit from the information in this show. Lastly, if you're not already part of the All Kids Can community, sign up at our website for your free weekly newsletter, links to new podcast episodes, and up-to-date information on our offerings. Head to allkidscan.com.au to sign up and learn more.